Mustang story begins in the streets of Detroit in 1896. In a small shop behind his home, Henry Ford built his dream. His dream to manufacture an affordable car that equaled mobility to freedom for millions of people worldwide. Mr. Ford, from his initial efforts, obtained great success with the Model T. He designed it at the Piquette plant in Detroit, Michigan, experimented with the assembly line, and produced 12,000 units to ultimately reach 15 million at the Highland Park, Michigan plant, where he continued to perfect the assembly line. In this corner, Mr. Ford designed the Model T. He would sit in his mother's rocking chair and direct a handful of mechanics to fabricate his dream. He would communicate his ideas with drawings on a chalkboard and verbal directions. I am Giuliano Zuccato. I worked at Ford's Design Center for 31 years as a clay sculptor. I was part of the team that created the original full-size clay model of the '64 Mustang. To celebrate 50 years of the Mustang phenomenon and record my recollection of 52 years ago, I have recreated a portion in clay of the original model with tools that I made myself, tools that clay sculptors still use today, regardless of the latest technical advances in car design. It is coincidental that I recreated a part of history in this corner on this day, October 1st, 2014, where Mr. Ford introduced the Model T in 1908, October 1st.
This is a 1909 Model T that was built June of '09, and this was a touring with open doors at the front, but this was the first body design that Henry built for the Model T. The second car would have been a Roadster, and then obviously they got into closed cars, this is the first closed coupe that they built. They were developed as an aluminum bodied car, and they were the Mustang of the Model Ts. As you can see, it's a coupe which has that fastback look to it, two-seater car, again built for doctors that used it as a closed car and all weather.
In the early 20s, half of the cars in America were Model T. By mid-1920, sales of the Model T began to decline due to rising competition and the lack of modern styling. In 1928, the Model A was a huge success for the Ford Motor Company. It replaced the Model T, which had been produced for 19 years. From 1933 to 1948, designer E.T. Gregory worked closely with Edsel in styling Ford products within the company. His style was traditional yet modern and created some very beautiful and lasting designs. From the 1936 Ford Cabriolet, the 1936 Lincoln Zephyr, the 1941 Lincoln Continental, the 1949 Mercury, Gregory's last car. The post-World War II years were very critical for Ford Motor Company. A new design was needed, and it came with a 1949 Ford. The assignment for his design was given to Ford in-house design led by Gregory and an independent team led by George Walker and his colleagues Elwood Ingle and Joe Horace. The opportunity for a third proposal was given by George Walker to Richard Kaleal, a clay sculptor out of work. The assignment to him was to generate a quarter-scale clay model. He did it on his kitchen table and won the competition. To be noted is the integration of the wheel fenders into the body side, giving the car a new streamlined look. The 1949 Ford sold 1 million on its first year and returned Ford Motor Company to financial health. In the early 50s, Ford opened a new design center with studios for each individual car line accessible only to employees involved in product development. William Clay Ford in the foreground as chairman of design, with George Walker, VP of design, and his colleagues holding respective positions of responsibilities. In this graphic, we see where the original Mustang was designed and the people responsible for its development. Mr. Ford II held his position as head of the Ford Motor Company from 1945 to 1979. Under his leadership, Ford Motor Company became a public traded company in 1956. When Mr. Ford was presented with the idea to introduce a new unproven car line in the heel of the Edsel failure was not receptive. It was only to the persuasive insistence of Mr. Iacocca that he agreed to venture in it. Iacocca joined Ford Motor Company in 1946, in 1965 Vice President of Ford Division, and President of Ford Motor Company from 1970 to 1978. His efforts to bring a new product to fill a void in the market earned him the honor to be called the father of the Mustang. Joe Orosz, a talented sculptor, painter, and industrial designer, started his career at Ford after his contribution to the design of the 1949 Ford. His presence in the studio as the chief designer alone was an inspiration to the team that designed the Mustang. Gale Alderman. Gale designed the Mustang identity. His work ethic was an inspiration in itself. His passion for his work was not limited to illustrate his ideas on paper. He would get his hands into the hot clay and work alongside a team of sculptors to further inspire us all to realize his vision. The birth of the Mustang began with a very simple sketch done by Gale Alderman and transformed into a full-size clay model by a team of clay sculptors. Technical information supplied by the engineering department are placed on the clay model. Some of the hard points to hold are overall length and width, front and rear overhangs, engine location, headroom, and much more. The shop consisted of very simple tools: a bandsaw, mostly used to cut templates, a workbench, and a clay oven. The clay was kept at 120 degrees and handled with gloves for the application to the buck. Clay applied to the buck in a semi-cooled state can be easily tooled into shape, and it is up to the sculptor to imagine the third dimension and retain the engineering restrictions. The front bumper establishes the front overhang. A section given by the designer is cut out of a masonite template, secured to an angle block, and dragged alongside a sweep to establish the top view. The bumper is completed by hand with steel blades and plastic tools to ultimately be evaluated by applying aluminum foil to simulate chrome. As the clay cools off, it offers the opportunity to create shapes more easily before its final consistency similar of soap. The tools used by the sculptor is a matter of personal choice and are the extension of his hands and emotions. The rake is one of the most important tools universally used by sculptors. It can quickly establish a surface and set the basis for larger tools such as sweeps and splines. When it comes to form the clay to its final shape, there's nothing that can compare to a flexible serrated steel. It is exhilarating to stand back and look at what has come out of your hands and emotion, especially when you get an approving nod from the one that originated the initial sketch. The spline, a simple piece of wood dragged in a crisscross pattern, is used to finalize large surfaces before the clay is prepared for paint. If there is a tool that cannot be absent, it is the knife. The knife is the king. It parallels the pen of the designer. The studio design director is at the center of it all. He directs, inspires, leads the designers, the sculptors, the engineers to ultimately create what will be a sculpture in motion. A product comparable to wallpaper called Dynac is applied to the finished clay to give a very realistic appearance as if the clay had been painted. The original Mustang was presented to the design committee and Mr. Ford in white for the final approval. This sculpture in motion was created with the most primitive tools and the most primitive medium, clay. Like a clay sculpture, hands are the primary tools. Whether the final product is bronze or something else, it will be on exhibit to delight millions of people that bring themselves to it. But a well-executed sculpture, that is the car, will bring itself to be enjoyed to the far reaches of the globe. Naming a new vehicle is pivotal to its initial success. During the design of the Mustang, the code name was Allegro. Several names were submitted to focus groups by Ford Division and Design Center to include Cougar, Torino, Mustang, and Mr. Ford favorite T-Bird 2. The initial suggestion was the P-51 Mustang fighter plane, but the horse was selected as the symbol best suited to represent the spirit of adventure that was to be.
The engine in this car is a Ford 289 cubic inch engine. What's interesting is it's the same engine that they used in the early Mustangs. They used the 260, then they had the 289, and this is the 289. Just like the Shelby Cobras, and like Shelby influenced Ford with Mustang, they also used these in the Cobras. And the Cobras came out in 1962, and then later the Mustang came out and they used these same engines in the Ford Mustang. And the high performance 289 was about 271 horsepower in the Mustang, and then the Cobras had about 306 horse. But later they put on the Weber carburetors like this car has, and they got about 360 to 400 horse out of it. And that's what they raced with most of the time.
But how did you get a call from Shelby?
I met him at Riverside when I was racing out there in a SCCA, Sports Car Club of America race. A little Merlin, like I own today.
And so you just talked and said,
well, I only had that car 1 year, and somebody said, well, if you're looking for drivers, they mentioned my name. So that's how it happened. Because they were number one, they knew the GT350 project was coming along. They knew that they were going to have the cars under 20 cars available, and they wanted to place them in the United States and Mexico and in Europe. They wanted to get them racing. So we came right out of the box winning races, with that GT350.
Right out of the box. And but the competition was there. I mean, the Corvette.
Yeah, the Corvettes were there, but we beat the Corvettes.
Well, I want to thank Giuliano Zuccato just for being here. It was a pleasure having him. He signed a lot of autographs out there today, which people enjoyed. And it's always good to have somebody with the background that Giuliano has at the club. It's always good information, great source of information.
Happy birthday.
And happy birthday. You're the one that started this thing, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday. All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you again for being here.
Incredible surprise. I'm not going home. Now, I am a lifetime honorary member.
You can come anytime.
Do I get the free board, broken board? Maybe next time.
You can make him president. How about that?
Well, what are you going to do this next? You're in charge.
I'm Paul Matulis. I am a member of Gulf Shore Mustang Club of Southwest Florida, and I have here a 2008 Roush Mustang. And it's number 34 of only 200 made this year. It is signed by Jack Roush and also by Edsel Ford III. And as Mr. Zuccato would sign it right in the middle, that would make it complete. Mr. Zuccato is now signing my car.
Wow, it's hot. This car, the Insel Mustang GTP, I did the original clay model for Bob Riley. And this is a test vehicle, the clay model that I did. What was different about this clay model is that it had clay underneath under the body.
There was attention to the underbody for the aerodynamic effect.
Exactly. And we put in the Venturi tunnel, if you're familiar with that. Right? So you were there one day in University of Maryland, Wind Tunnel facility, and you worked with Bob Riley, and I was the modeler making the changes necessary to keep the downforce and also minimize the drag.
This was a very interesting time for Ford, as they reintroduced themselves to road racing in the early 1980s.
I see.
The vision of this car was they wanted to have the engine up front so they could maximize the effect of this tunnel in the back. So this tunnel that you referred to is very important for this car.
Yes.
That later came back and did a probe car that was that had a rear engine and didn't have as effective as tunnel existed. But this was a great time when Ford Aerospace was still a subsidiary of Ford, and they had all the resources to apply to the racing program.
So you developed the engine for this? It was a Ford engine, right?
It was a Ford 4-cylinder turbocharged engine.
And you reworked it? Did this something to it?
Well, it was specifically built in conjunction with Eric Zakowski at Zaxby. It was specifically developed for this GTP car. I know that they had a Mustang sedan car that they ran the year before, and they had to reverse the side of the intake and the exhaust on the cylinder heads because they wanted to put the turbocharger on the other side away from the driver.
Oh, that's the. But I don't know if you recall these louvers in here. We put in. Well, because the car was lifting in the wind tunnel, right? And then we opened the fender here, and the car came down.
Yeah, that
So,
exhausted pressure that was being built in underneath the hood.
Yes. So this was, then where did we race this, do you recall?
This car raced for 2 years at least, maybe 3, I think for 2 years, and it won its first race at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, in I believe it was it was either late '82 or early '83.
Yes. Do you recall the competition?
Porsche 962s
Really?
were really a big competition at the time.
But I recall there was another company that went down called Zach Speed, and they brought their models from Germany.
Yeah, Zach Speed was actually Zach Speed. I was a partner with Zakowski in 81. In 82, 81 and 82. And in 83, I was no longer a partner, but Zach Speed was the primary vendor for Ford to operate the car and to organize the drivers.
All the drivers, okay.
So Ford was responsible for the design of the car. Zach Speed and Zach Speed Roush, myself and Eric Zakowski were responsible for the engine. Bob Riley did the design on the car. You did the clay.
Yes, and I did I had to do a special modeling table to rotate the car.
Oh, so you could work on the tongue.
Yes. So we had clay 360 degrees, and we installed at the wind tunnel and also in the studio 2 electric pistons, one in front, one in the back. That would pick up the model, lift it, then we could rotate it, bring it down to body position, and work it like if we were in the studio.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we make the changes and we take dimensions so we could record it
And blow it again.
and do it again.
Awesome.
Okay, this was an exciting time.
It was a very interesting time for Ford Motor Company and
Yes.
their reintroduction to road racing, and it was really when I started my road racing career as well.
Okay. Jack, this is my contribution to your museum. And these are the tools that I used on the Mustang, 64 Mustang. And 20 years later, I used them in the Nissan Mustang GTP, which you were involved. So this is my gift to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Giuliano. You know, there's for every new product, a new race car or a new production car, there's a certain amount of art and science that comes together.
Yes.
And the clay work that you've done in the wind tunnels and the work you've done with styling reflects probably the most important blend of art and science in new cars and race cars.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giuliano.
And thank you for your time.
Appreciate that. Take care.
Okay. First of all, I'm John Clore from Ford Performance, and I want to welcome you all to Gale's wonderful museum in Homestead. Ladies and gentlemen, Gale Halderman, let's give him a round of applause. We also have Giuliano Zuccato. Giuliano?
I'm here.
Giuliano worked with Ford Design as a clay modeler who worked on that original Mustang. He took those drawings from Gale's team and adapted it from a drawing into clay. So an artist, but also a guy that loves the Mustang. And Giuliano was making a movie, and he wants to go back and recount his time spending on this iconic car. And he's also, I believe it's on YouTube right now?
Yes, it is.
It is. All right. So we'll make sure that we put it on Mock Summit. You guys get to see it. And when Giuliano comes to speak, we can share that as well. But so to talk to Giuliano and ask him about 1963 and 62, and talk to Gale. This is going to be your chance. These are Giuliano's clay modeling tools that he uses. He's going to donate them to the Halderman Museum.
I
Gale said he used the one that Giuliano did. I wanted to clean your teeth, Gale. Those are fun. Those are beautiful. Giuliano,
Let me say something professional. When Gail, can you guys hear me? Yeah. When Gail said I used them more than you did, he's right. Because even though he was a designer and I was a clay modeler, he crossed the line. he was so impatient to get to the clay, he grabbed the tools right out of my hands. he just did drawing. He went into the drawers and got the hot clay and put it on with us, down on his knees. Let's get Alderman.
All right.
Thank you, Giuliano. Appreciate it.
Charlie Fennett was here. I was here. I was here. And all of a sudden, I hear a foot go like this. George. So I'm working on the bumper. I'm down on my knees, and I'm working on this. And he says, "It's too fat. Make it thinner." And he walked away. So then I just took my tool down, tool it down some more. And later on he came back and I feel the foot going again. I said, it's not. He says, I told you to make this thin. And as he walked away, I said, does he want a bumper or does he want a mold?
That's what I wanted.
And remember now, yeah, if you look in here, look at this and look at that. There's no protection.
It's 3/4 of an inch. That's all we have now.
Oh, is that right? And then it came to 4 inches.
Oh,
That
yeah.
again.
We never made a sketch
Never.
for the front end. All we did is we told the modelers what we wanted.
Yes.
We described it,
Yes,
and you guys did it.
and we did it. Thank you. Now I want to go to the back. You said, let's do 3 tail lights, okay? And you gave me a sketch. You sketched this and this. That time you wanted 3, if I recall. So I made 3 on this side.
Yeah.
So I made 3 wood blocks. I cut them out of, I didn't make them out of clay. Paint them red, and then you said, put a bezel, clay, and then foil it. That's what I recall.
Not in the first design, they were all individual. 3 lights.
Yes. Oh yeah, I made 3 blocks. I made 3 blocks. And then it became 1 lens with color. But then, the nice thing is, you went around the studio, and you came back with this. I don't know what's that, but something like that. And you say, here's a gas pedal. Then you went away. It was late at night, but I still remember because you came back and you were kind of joking, and you said, and you came back with something like this, and you stuck it in the clay, and you said, and there's a key. All right, and let's.
Those were good old days.
Wow, man. A car called Mustang. A car that has traveled half a century and shows no sign of going to pasture. A car that has won the coveted Tiffany Gold Medal Award for excellence in design and has won the hearts of people around the world. It has inspired Mustang owners to form clubs around the world where they can share stories of their prized possession, bond with new friendship, and never be alone in a strange city again. It is a love affair with life.